The 4th of July is one of the biggest celebrations in the United States. Unfortunately, it's often marked by loud and bright fireworks displays, large crowds, and booming music. This year marks our family's first attempt to view the fireworks. Join us as we share tips on how to create an autism-friendly celebration. But before we get started, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for reminders of upcoming streams. Let's get started. So I just realized we called this episode We Try the 4th of July, but technically we did not try the 4th of July because the fireworks was on a different day.
So you're just a liar then.
I know. I just realized that. I was like, is this false advertisement?
Caught in your own lie. Such a shame.
Yeah, so this year is the first year that we actually attempted the 4th of July fireworks with our kids. We've never done it ourselves, actually, right? In our entire marriage and dating relationship, I don't think we've ever got around to seeing the fireworks together.
Well, I really don't get it because, like, at least the last 10 years or so, there's been something going on. So it's like either they're like, oh, we're not going to shoot fireworks on the 4th of July. We are going to do it early. We're going to do it late. Oh, the weather's bad. Like there was always like some type of like reason for it not being on the 4th as planned. And I don't really remember that from my childhood. So I don't know what like in the world is going on. Like we even went to like this firework display and it wasn't on the 4th. So I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah, it was almost like serendipitous that we would finally be able to see it together with our family and our kids for the first time because our girls have never seen fireworks either.
Yeah, so it was definitely interesting. More so because like we were getting to like experience it for the first time, but it was like the first time as a family. So there's a lot of like neat emotions I think that were kind of going on during that. And I think it was definitely good that we had like planned and prepped beforehand, so we kind of knew a little bit about what we were getting into without I guess encountering as we go. So I mean yeah, it was a big day because I mean obviously the fireworks start well after like our kids go to bed, so we already knew that they would be up later. We knew that they might get cranky. We knew that they would have to kind of be entertained a little bit, but then if the off chance that they fell asleep before the fireworks, we had to be okay with they can take like a slight power nap and then we can try and see if they're able to like wake up or stay up for the fireworks. So that was just like the pre-game prepping, and then we were just hoping a little bit for the best, and overall I thought it went pretty well for a first time.
Yeah, so basically what happened is we found out that our local area doesn't actually do the 4th of July fireworks on the 4th of July. So they ended up doing it on something crazy because it was like last Saturday, so like a week ago or something like that. So really early.
June the 20
20 something. Yeah. So
third.
I was like, that was outrageously early. I didn't even realize that they were doing them until the last second. I was like, oh my gosh, it's today. So yeah, our fireworks already happened. And so this time around, we decided that we are going to try to enjoy this as a family, especially since Matt and I have never been able to enjoy them as a couple. We thought this would be something really special and unique to do with the kids. And since like our main fundraiser or like fund drive that we do for Autism Wish is the earmuff drive, I was like, well, how can we do that as like a fundraiser or like something that we do for the kids and we never even bring our own kids to the 4th of July fireworks. So I felt like obligated that we had to do this. So we made sure that we planned in advance. And I think that in retrospect, that is why it was so successful because we did a couple different things to make sure that things would go smoothly. Um, I would say probably the first thing that we did was planning in advance in terms of making sure that we had our wagon. The Wonderful wagon was super pivotal in this. We made sure that we had that wagon so that the kids had an area to kind of be self-contained. If they got scared, they could hide under the seats. It has like a little shaded cover overhead. So if for any reason they were overwhelmed with like the lights or anything, we could cover that up. We also made sure that they had their iPads and that they were fully charged. We're like, okay, if they don't like it, then we can always put them in the car and just have them use their iPads while we're watching it. So we had that as a distraction. And that also helped keep them up until late because it was. How late was it that they started it? Do you remember? Because I think it was scheduled for
Yes.
9,
Oh
but I
my
think it went
gosh.
past
No.
9.
So of course, like I didn't think about it until we're there because I think they said that the event went on from like 7 to 10 was when they were going to close it out. But it never occurred to me like most places that have like fireworks or some type of display and as well as like food vendors that and entertainment, they always save the fireworks to like the last very like possible moment, like that's the closeout of like the night. They end with the fireworks. So like when it said like, oh, it closes or it ends at 10, me should have realized that that meant it's going to start like half hour 20 minutes right before it ends. So yeah, it was starting at probably around 9:40, 9:45 or so. And our kids usually go to sleep around like 7:38.
Like 7, between 7 and 8, yeah. I'm still
So
laughing at the me should have realized.
well,
It's like a
me,
Yoda talk.
not you,
Yoda talk.
me.
Me
uh
should have realized.
uh
um,
but yeah.
no. Yeah, well, the other thing was that usually when you go out to see fireworks, usually in my experience, it has been that they do it when the sun sets, like they do it at dusk. And the sun was set or scheduled to set at like 9 or 9:30. So we thought that that's when the fireworks were going to go off. And it wasn't for another like hour after that.
No,
So
it was worse than that. The sunset was like at 8:50 or so. And then
yeah,
it kept getting like darker and darker and you could like barely even see like a little bit of like yellow, but it was otherwise like pretty black. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we've been waiting so long. Like hopefully this like comes soon and our kids don't like pass out or start having a like meltdown because they're overtired or something. But thankfully, as soon as it like started, I guess that kind of gave them like, I don't know, a little jumpy, a little excitement. So they were okay to actually like work through the rest of the show. So
yeah. And
whew,
maybe I'll post a picture on social media next week or something. But one of the things that we did was bring that wagon, the iPads. The other things that we did, though, there's a couple of things that we did to try to make this a smoother transition. One is we made sure they were fed beforehand. So we got them food and got them situated with food before we got there. The biggest thing I think that we did that really made a difference is we avoided the crowds completely. So they had the whole area where they had the fireworks, they had vendors, they had bouncy houses, all this stuff, the music going. And we basically completely circumvented that. And what we did is we ended up going to like a building with a parking lot, an empty parking lot that was like a couple blocks past that that still had basically an amazing view of the fireworks because it was probably just one block past it. And so we still had a great view, but it was not crowded. There was not like a ton of loud noise and all this stuff happening. We were able to basically keep isolated from all the chaos. And I think that that made a really huge difference. You're on mute.
Thank you. The beauty of fireworks is they're in the sky, so like you don't have to worry about like trees or anything. So yeah, we weren't able to see any of the crowds or anything, so we were just like kind of hanging out in a parking lot, and that was, I mean, the show. As soon as it started, you were able to see the fireworks over the trees, and we didn't have to deal with crowds or, I guess more importantly, the bouncy houses, because I know that like the kids would have wanted to go in there. They wouldn't have wanted to come out. They might have thrown like a tantrum because we've had some um, challenges there as far as transitioning out of like a preferred activity to kind of like sitting and waiting. So obviously we would have had to transition them out before the fireworks would have started. So I think that that would have added a few complications unnecessarily. So yeah, that was definitely a helpful I guess, approach to not trying to engage in all the activities at once, kind of stay focused on what the main, I guess, objective was for the night, which was the fireworks. So, yeah, it was definitely, I think, a good experience for the whole family that we got to enjoy. Thankfully, they both had their earmuffs, and they were okay with the little popping sound and the light display. So, yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah, I think the oldest one actually, after a little bit, took her earmuffs off. She felt comfortable enough taking them off. Initially, she felt a little anxious, but eventually she actually took them off. But the other thing that I want to note is that what we really did was expose our kids to one stimulation at a time. So, like, progressively exposing them to new experiences rather than doing it all at once. And I think that's why it was so successful. So, instead of just throwing them into this festival that's going to have music and smells of all these different foods from the food vendors and all the games going on and all the kids screaming and all the movement and all of that, we figured, that compounding with the fireworks being visually, bright, the sound of them popping, the smell of the smoke in the air, all of that combined together would have just been way too much. And so we realized that, just getting them to be able to sit through just the fireworks alone would be a challenge. So we didn't want to push our luck with that. And we wanted to just gradually wean them into that experience. So that's why we decided to just start this year with just the fireworks and get as much of the other sensory stuff out of the way just to see how they would do with the fireworks alone. And they did really well. They did use their earmuffs. One of them removed them halfway. The younger one is very sound sensitive, so she kept hers on. But we also offered them sunglasses. So we brought like a sensory kit with us, and we packed sunglasses in there too. Sometimes people don't think about this and they're like, sunglasses at night? What? That doesn't make sense. But there's some kids that sensory wise, just the high contrast of the bright firework to the super dark sky and the flashiness of it, sometimes that can be overstimulating for kids who are light sensitive. So believe it or not, some kids will actually need sunglasses to watch fireworks displays. So we had that in our little sensory bag as well, just in case.
Yeah, and the oldest, excuse me, the oldest was actually curious, and I think that's why she had taken her like headphones off, because she was trying to figure out like, oh, okay, like how does it all like work? And we were trying to explain like the popping that you're hearing is like the fireworks. So I think she was like trying to put them together as far as trying to figure out like, oh, okay, you hear the pop, and then there's like the lights. So it was kind of a neat experience just to kind of explain that to her. But yeah, I definitely think focusing on one sensory situation at a time, mostly because like in our situation, like our kids were up well past their bedtime, so we tried to have a very like calm activity, which was them watching one of their little shows. Shout out to like what, Bluey or something.
Yeah, they're really into Bluey
so
right now.
so like they're watching like their little show, and they're both kind of happy and just kind of relaxing. And then we're able to tell them, oh, okay, I think it's time for the fireworks. And then they're already at a relatively calm, peaceful state, rather than having a lot of kids and excitement and yelling and everything, where they're already kind of up as far as like a high intensity moment, and then trying to settle down from that, which I think probably would have been a little bit more difficult rather than being in a very calm state and then being able to go into the fireworks as a new potentially preferred activity versus trying to back down where you're already having fun in a bouncy house, but mom and dad are pulling me out to like stare at the sky because they don't necessarily know what fireworks are and they don't know anything about it. So I definitely think that that is a smart approach rather than trying to do everything at one go, especially if you haven't done it before. Start small and then kind of increase from there. And I think hopefully that will lead to some type of success. We also kind of did not really like a social story, but we kind of talked about kind of like the idea of fireworks and kind of showing like little videos with like animated characters with fireworks. So I'm not sure how much that really like transferred over, but like it was something we kind of did beforehand.
Yeah, well, we also did the America's birthday thing. Remember when? So we basically were just telling them, what's the 4th of July? We basically just explained it to them. Oh, it's America's birthday. And because we explained it that way, they were really into it because, little kids and birthdays, they love birthday parties. And so while we were explaining it as birthdays, they started looking up all these videos of like old-timey like United States America songs like America the Beautiful, like all these things that like you don't really hear much
Classics.
anymore, but it's
What a
like those classics.
classic. Yeah.
Yeah, so somehow, and I don't know how, but they found them on their iPads. And so while we were at the fireworks displays, they were actually like playing these songs. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that you knew that that song was like associated to the 4th of July. But it was kind of funny because they were like adding their own personal soundtrack to the displays.
But it worked out. I mean, because they were able to kind of do some, they felt that they were a part of something that they understood, even though they had never been to it before. So they kind of understood, like, oh, okay, these songs are associated with America, with fireworks. So by them playing them, they felt like they were kind of like belonging in there, even though it's like their first time experiencing it. But no, I could not have asked for, I think, a better first experience with them. Both of them did really well. I was a little concerned that maybe they would get a little bit scared, but I think because again we were a little bit further away from the actual like launch site of the fireworks, it wasn't as maybe like scary for them. They were a little bit further back, but I mean they were still able to see like the beautiful fireworks blasting off and everything. So yeah, no, I think we'll, I mean, probably try and do the exact same thing any other time we can get fireworks. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Fun fact, I do not like fireworks because I've been shot at by them twice. I've been accidentally burnt by fireworks that have been like kicked over or damaged twice, and I've had them explode in front of my face, and now I'm like, I want to stay away from them.
you you don't like fireworks, you love them
The
because
fireworks love me. Let's just
they
put it
have,
that way. So I hide behind a car and it still goes under the car and explodes in my face. I'm like, how? How do I get away from this?
well, I you probably haven't got a chance to see it. I sent you a little like video clip of like a like firework display that had gone bad. It was like a family like in their front yard shooting or about to shoot off fireworks, and like one like went like a miss, and you see like the kids up front like a baby, like one's in like a little baby walker, like pretty close. Like I wouldn't do that. And then like they have like must have like a whole box that must have like tipped over because it starts shooting fireworks like all in their direction, like burning up like their whole like front yard, and they're like grabbing
Yeah.
the kids to get them out of the way, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like no,
Yeah.
wow.
That's like my nightmare. And unfortunately, it's been so close
Oh
so many times. So, yeah.
yeah.
So, we learned a lot through this experience. And it's basically been, our gut instinct, I feel like, is still correct in that we shouldn't really limit our kids on what we think that they can handle or can't handle. We're always a little anxious about trying new experiences like bringing them to fireworks, like keeping them up late or things like that we think could potentially be a trigger. But, I think that it's been really rewarding pushing forward with these activities and pushing forward with attempting these things. We accommodate as best as we can. Like we did bring the earmuffs, we brought the sunglasses, we explained to them what the 4th of July was in advance. We told them to expect fireworks. We showed them videos on YouTube of fireworks. So we did walk them through the process of what to expect, and we kind of talked it up so that they'd be excited about it. And I think that helped. We also made it a trip. Like we made it fun. We brought them to the dollar store before we went, and we let them pick out a bunch of like red, white, and blue glow sticks and glow necklaces and things like that. So that made it more fun for them, and it kind of helped them stay up too, because I knew they were gonna have an issue staying up. So we got like the little glow in the dark necklaces and bracelets. We cracked them and got them all lit, and so they were in their wagon and they were just sitting there chilling, spinning their little necklaces and stuff, and they were just like excited about that. So it's just like the little things that you can do to try to make them comfortable, try to make them feel like safe, and give them the expectation of what to expect in advance so that they're not kind of taken aback or taken off guard. So that's, I think, what worked really well for us this time around, and I think it would probably work well next time around too.
I think so. I think the big thing for me, I mean, obviously everything you just mentioned as far as like have like a plan in place, know kind of what you're doing before you're actually doing it. But I would try and say, which I mean is always a challenge around like the fourth, is if you're able to find a spot that doesn't have a huge crowd or a lot of other things going on, it might help in your benefit. Because I'm just thinking for us, it was a relatively quiet parking. I mean, we weren't the only ones in the parking lot, and there was some noise and like other families and whatnot kind of around, but it was much more quiet than if we were actually like where all the vendors are, where the music is playing, where the bouncy houses is, where like all the food is and everything. Like it would just kind of be much more like chaos there trying to experience the fireworks versus if you just go like a few blocks off of like the standard like hotspot, and then as long as you still have like a good view of the fireworks, I definitely think that that is a better approach until your kids are much more comfortable with crowds and all the other sensory things that come along with that.
Yeah, and then there's always the alternative. Like I said, this was our first time taking them out, but we have in the past done just like at home, just getting the kids like the little sparklers and lighting those up. Just starting with sparklers is often a good idea because they were a little anxious even with that at the beginning. So like the first couple of years, we just tried to get them to be comfortable with seeing a sparkler, being close to one. Our eldest initially was terrified of sparklers. As soon as we would light one, she would run away screaming. So it took a while to get her even comfortable with sparklers. Eventually, she felt comfortable holding them. Eventually, she would play with them. And then we could graduate to the little fireworks, those mini ones that you can do in like your driveway. And we would shoot those off. And those aren't too bad. Sometimes they're on the louder end, honestly. I don't really like those loud ones, but it kind of gives them like a precursor of like what to expect when it comes to the fireworks display without being too overwhelming. And it's in your control because like you can do that in your house. So if they need to run inside and hide, they can. If they need their safe space, they can. It's not a big deal. So there's always like using that as kind of like the trainee wheel version before you bring your kids to an official large firework display.
I like how you were leading up with it. It made me think in my own dumb mind as far as like, oh, we started off with like the sparkler and she was nervous, and then we had her holding it, and then we had her playing with it, and I'm like, if we keep elevating this, it only goes to like a more intense situation. And
Pyromania.
now she loves throwing cherry bombs or whatever, and soon we're gonna start playing with dynamite and like, yeah, just like, but I mean, obviously we keep like the dynamite like locked away. And I'm kidding.
For the
I'm
record,
kidding.
we do not store dynamite in the
No,
home.
no. I just thought it was funny as far as like the escalation of like now she's playing with the sparklers. She's like, I mean,
And then she ran away from them.
but it was like
Yeah.
the elevation. Like now we're gonna teach her how to shoot some real fireworks. But no, like yeah, I think I'm curious. Like if we got sparklers this year, she might still be a little on edge, like because I mean sparklers like are right, like obviously like right in your face, so like it's I feel like a
She
little
was okay
intense.
with them last time. I don't know. That's the other problem with the 4th of July that people tend to kind of forget is there's a 1-year break between the last 4th and the current 4th. So sometimes people will be like, I don't know why they're not okay with the fireworks this year. They were fine with them last year. And it's like, well, it's been a whole year. It's been an entire year between those two events. They might have forgotten. They might have like any sort of like comfort level that they have from that period of time might have dissipated by now. So it's like if you're not constantly reinforcing or exposing your kids to certain things, they stop understanding it, or they could potentially just not feel comfortable with it again. So sometimes it's just the fact that they haven't been exposed to it for such a long time. And if that's the case, that's usually why you want to kind of prime them in advance with maybe like sparklers or something like that, or social stories, or we like to do a lot of YouTube videos. So we'll go on YouTube and we will purposefully search for things like fireworks displays or social stories of what fireworks are, why we celebrate the 4th of July. And we do that several weeks in advance leading up to the event. So sometimes just having to reintroduce that is something that makes a big difference in the end if your kid is one of those who kind of forgets after a year.
And honestly, I think if they're young, like, you almost have to start a little bit from scratch. I mean, every year, because I mean, our kids are relatively young. I mean, 5 and 4, but I mean, a year for them, I mean, is a significant portion of like their life. And I mean, obviously, I mean, our kids have pretty decent memories, um, but I'm just thinking in retrospect, like they might not recall having like a sparkler before. So as far as like not like assuming, oh, okay, they're comfortable, and slowly making sure that like everyone is on the same page before a potential meltdown occurs because they're responding badly to a kind of misunderstanding.
Yeah. Or it could be the opposite. It could be that you have a child that, like ours, has really strong memory. And maybe you did take them out to see fireworks one time, and that time you didn't prepare. That time they didn't have the earmuffs. That time they didn't have the social story. And because of that, they did experience sensory overload. They did get a meltdown. They did kind of freak out essentially. And if that's the case, it's possible that they still remember that and they have a strong association of like, oh no, 4th of July, fireworks. I don't like that. That was scary. And if that's the case, that might be something that might trigger them, just the idea, the thought of the 4th of July 1 year later. So that's something that we have struggled with in the past with our kids, not necessarily with the fireworks, but with things with like medical appointments and dental appointments. It just takes one appointment to be ingrained in their memory for an entire year, and they still vividly remember that a year later. So if your kid is anything like ours and has that really strong, long-term, vivid memory like many autistic kids have, that could be another reason that they are kind of anxious about the 4th. And again, it's really about slowly exposing them to these things. So maybe just starting with the sparklers, starting at home with those videos, social stories, seeing them at a greater distance than what you would typically try to see fireworks displays at, things like that to kind of ease them into it, and then gradually kind of up the ante every year until they're able to comfortably watch them closer up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good approach. And yeah, I mean, right now we are sitting at a good place. I'm not sure if we have any fireworks display coming up for the 4th. I would hope somewhere someone
Yeah,
has to be
there's
shooting
another
something
one.
up.
We'll do a round two.
So so hopefully that will be a very similar situation. We'll have to like scout the area to make sure we have our like remote parking lot kind of tucked away again, and try and just do kind of a repeat of what we experienced last week or whatever. And hopefully we will be successful. So at least we have two positive experience kind of under our belt. And then from there, we can start to step it up a little bit with 4th of July.
We can see if it was a fluke or not.
Yeah, exactly. We can check out our data sample and see if it is true.
Yeah.
So,
So that's pretty much how our not really the 4th went. And we will be trying again on the actual 4th. For those of you listening in audio, this will be like a week delayed for you guys. Um, but yeah, we'll let you know how that goes. I also wanted to mention, because part of what we do at Autism Wish is our annual earmuff drive. Because of our financial situation with my job loss this year, we significantly had to scale that back due to lack of funding, because we self-fund a lot of these things. But we were able to get a donation from Star Soul. Star Soul was one of those people that we mentioned earlier that we had partnered with to make a t-shirt for charity for Autism Acceptance Month. And so their social media, I believe, is at official Star Soul on Instagram and Facebook. But they donated a bunch of earmuffs, and we were able to gift about 35 kids this year. So we've kept that to our local community just to save on shipping costs. But we were able to actually successfully continue the tradition of donating earmuffs for the 4th of July. So that was really exciting. We were worried we wouldn't be able to do it this year, but they pulled through for us and we were able to do it. So I am expecting that a lot of these kiddos will have a great 4th and hopefully have as good of an experience as our kids had. Because I noticed earmuffs definitely make a difference.
Right. I mean, and it's always easier to take them off than to like find out like, oh, we don't have them. Like, let's hope everything goes well. So it's always the thing you want to make sure you have, and then just be pleasantly surprised when you don't need it versus trying to go the other way, because it doesn't go so well the other way.
Yeah, it's like one of
Yeah,
those better safe than sorry situations.
exactly. So,
Yeah, so that's all that we have for today. For those of you watching on the YouTube channel, do you have any other 4th of July recommendations or tips? Or has the 4th of July traditionally gone really poorly for you? Do you avoid it for any reason? Or was there anything that worked really well and maybe I didn't mention some cool tips, some cool resource that you might be using? If so, make sure to leave a comment on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@autismwish, and let us know. If we see a cool one, we'll probably share it out. And if you like what you hear, please consider supporting our channel via Cash App at $autismwish or Venmo at autismwish. Your donation is going to help us keep our studio lights on and our programs running, like our earmuff drive that we just barely were able to pull through with for our local community. So if you guys have even $1 to spare, that would help us keep these programs running for as long as we can. And that's all I've got for you guys this week. So we will see you next week. Have a good
good
one.
luck with the 4th of July.
Yes. May
Maybe.
the 4th. No, it's May. That
Well,
doesn't work.
yeah,
May the
it's
4th.
okay. July the
Okay.
4th be with you.
All
I
right,
got you.
everybody. On that note, we'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.